All right, let's get our Facebook folks in here, and then we'll start the show. Boom, boom. All right, welcome in, welcome in. It is 7:47 Mountain Time, and it's time for an episode of Broncos for Breakfast. I am Nick Kendall, running solo today. Scott's got a lot of things going on, so giving him the day off, much deserved. He works hard, and give him a chance to do his father stuff, running around with sports ball going on. So just me today. Hopefully that doesn't make people tune in and immediately tune out. That would be like I already get that at home. No, I'm just kidding. Typically, I'm the one doing that. But appreciate everyone coming in. Make sure you click a thumbs up on the way in. And yeah, let's get into it. OTA starting up here. Going to talk a little bit of Marvin Mims today. Shout out to Eric Trickle, a good friend of mine. Did an article recently for Mile High Huddle talking about Marvin Mims and how Denver needs more from him year two. And that's something that I've obviously been banging the drum for as well. The Broncos outside of Cortland Sutton have pretty much nothing but question marks at receiver and the offensive skill positions. But that's because you don't know what you have there. That means there's plenty of opportunity for young guys to step up. So let's say hello to the chat as you guys start to trickle in. Make sure, like I said, click the thumbs up in the way in. And if you really want to support me, make sure you drop a super chat as well. Anything obviously is appreciated, but not necessary also. We got Gatorade Gaming coming in here saying, good morning, Nick and Scott. What's good, Broncos country? We're hoping for another day of no injury news. I think that would be good. Honestly, that's taking away anything from OTAs. What I don't care if, offense struggling, defense struggling, blah, blah, blah. It's all negative or zero sum because it's Bronco on Bronco, right? What I do want is to come out of OTAs with no more serious injury news. Obviously, Denver loses Drew Sanders to an Achilles injury, probably for the year. We'll see if he comes back. I would be skeptical if he does come back, if he has much of an impact, but that's a bummer, especially for somebody who really probably would have had an opportunity to become more of an impact player this season. Not a good start for the 71st overall pick in the 2023 draft, but we'll see. We still got time to hopefully get things on track. But good to see you, Gatorade Gaming. Appreciate you coming in with that llama photo. We got Zach Powers in the house saying morning with a coffee. Speaking of which, when I go solo, I do have to take a little break sometimes for a coffee sip. So forgive me for that. This morning I poured my coffee, and what I've been doing in the morning is waking up an hour before the shows, making my coffee, flipping over the dishes, and going up and feeding the baby. And I came down to pour my coffee this morning before the show, and it was water. I forgot to add the grounds. Ugh, what a bummer. But we got it now. Thank God. It's not just, residual coffee bean juice going in here. So appreciate you. Coffee's good this morning. We got Django says, good morning, though it's evening here in the Philippines. Awesome, Django. That's really cool. Shout out to you out there in the Pacific, and hope you're doing well. Philippines seems like a pretty cool spot. Hopefully you're enjoying yourself out there. We got Dominique coming in. Always good to hear from D Money. Says, good morning, Nick. Good to see you, Dominique. We got Hugh Jellyfant coming in here saying, we are coming here for you, Nick. Don't worry. That's good to hear. Appreciate that. But we'll see what happens with how the show goes along here without Scott here to keep us on track. Hopefully I don't go too much into the weather or hiking or mountaineering or something or Hawkeye talk. But we'll you guys keep me on track. I'll have you keep me accountable since Scott's not here. Zach Powers comes in and says, Sean Payton mentioned Franklin playing the Z spot. Do you think he will fit there and not play slot? He makes sense as a Z, a little bit more vertically based, a little higher, a little longer than Marvin Mims. I think in 11 personnel, you're going to see Mims more so in the slot, and then you could see maybe a little inside-outside stuff rotating between those guys based on what you want to do formationally. But 12 personnel, probably you'll have Mims playing there. But yeah, Franklin's definitely competing for the Z, and there's a massive opportunity there. I mean, is it going to be Reynolds out there? Is Reynolds more the X? Is Reynolds Sutton insurance in case a move happens coming up here? You have obviously Patrick. Outside of that, I mean, Little Jordan Humphrey is more of a big slot at this point. Johnson and Virgil are more special teams guys. So huge opportunity for rookie wide receiver Troy Franklin, and good draft class. A lot of people thought he was a steal. Hopefully, hopefully ends up being a good player there for the Broncos, and they have a cost controlled wide receiver, which very important given what the wide receiver market is like right now. Lawrence Rivera says Scott's got a day off. Now who's going to carry the boats? Carry the boats. David Goggins. Facebook's not on. Don't know what's going on there, Lawrence, but appreciate you. We got Facebook in here. I see Facebook in, but hopefully everything's okay on that end. And it's always okay. Also, AG1. The older I get, and man, since having a kid, do I feel older. The more seriously I know I have to take care of my health and nutrition. Enter AG1. No matter what you do for a living, it can become all too convenient to rely on coffee sip and caffeine for that extra energy and focus, but that's not great for your body, especially blood pressure. There's always the deaded crash. That's why I stop afternoon, but definitely AG1, you get sustained energy, so I'm not reaching for another cup of coffee in the afternoon. On top of that, I can't stand swallowing those massive multivitamins, and we all know all too well about the crucially important it is to take care of your gut when health comes to the perspective with probiotics. AG1 checks all three of those boxes, and it does so in an impressive, life-altering way. Focus, energy, nutrition, and improved gut health all in one delicious smoothie. AG1 is next level. I use it to support my whole body health and help me feel my very best. If you want to take ownership of your health, it starts with AG1. Try AG1 and get free 1-year supply of D3, K2, and 5 free AG1 travel packs when you first subscribe. Go to ag1.com/huddle. Again, that's drinkag1.com/huddle. Check it out. All right, now the business part's done. Let's get back to the party here. AG1's a party, of course, and we really do appreciate them supporting us. By supporting them, you support us as well, so shout out to them. Gatorade Gaming says, is it true the Broncos are looking at center options in the trade market? I haven't heard so much about trades for the center market. You still got some options out there. We'll go through OTAs, and if Denver is really concerned in there, we could see something happen, but I'll believe it when I see it. And if there is a trade out there, it's probably going to be pretty minuscule if that happens. But we'll see what happens. Chris says that's a cleaning cycle, and if anyone asks, you did it on purpose. Of course, I have no idea what's going on here, but we're cleaning for sure. We got John Fields coming in saying, "Good morning, Nick and Broncos country from Baltimore. Can't wait to see what our offense looks like this year. Go Broncos." Yeah, AG1 brought to you by Manscaped. Take care of yourself and take care of down south as well. We got Ben Flores in the house. Says, meant to ask you, how do you like being a daddy? I have 4 kids myself, 2 boys, 2 girls. It's a stressful blessing. Thanks for all you do. Good to see you, Ben. I enjoy it. I'm on leave right now. It's kind of weird to be, on the clock from the moment the sun comes up to the moment the sun comes down, especially with somebody who's so dependent on you and cannot communicate their needs to you other than getting upset or laughing, smiling as well. But it's it's definitely rewarding, and I love that little guy. He's been a lot of fun. Roy Osborne comes in and says, "Good morning, Nick and Broncos country. Great to see you." And I think we're all caught up on everything. And shout out again, Lawrence Rivera, for the $5 super chat. You love me. It's not just Scott. You guys are here for me as well. But talking about Broncos' second-year wide receiver, Marvin Mims. Denver traded up for Marvin Mims in the 2023 draft, going up to 63 overall, the last pick of the second round. And Eric Trickle, again, shout out to him, did a good article on him, stating when the Broncos traded up for Marvin Mims in the 2023 draft, they had high hopes for him being a playmaker on offense. He showed promise during Denver's Week 2 matchup against the Washington Commanders, where he caught 2 of his 22 catches on the season for 113 of his 377 yards and his lone touchdown. So a lot of optimism coming off that Week 2 game. Unfortunately, issues with ball security and quarterback play led to decrease in Mims' usage, creating trust issues and other challenges that he had to overcome. Over the rest of the season, he only broke 50 yards receiving 2 times and 25 yards receiving 3 other times outside of that Week 2 game. While Mims still made an impact as a returner, earning a Pro Bowl and All-Pro honors there, which is great. That's okay rookie year return on investment. The Broncos had much more in mind when they moved up to land him. As he enters year 2, nothing and no one is standing in the way except himself. That's true. I mean, again, we listed those guys out there. Troy Franklin, Josh Reynolds, Tim Patrick, Lil Jordan Humphrey. It's time for Mims to shine, man. Without a doubt, he needs to. According to Sean Payton, part of the problem was that the coaches had similar ways to utilize Mims as well as Jerry Jeudy. Now that Judy's gone, and even with the additions of Reynolds and Franklin, Mims brings something unique. Sure, he and Franklin can both be explosive deep threats, but Mims brings a lot more underneath, which can significantly help Bo Nix with Payton's offense. The Broncos need more out of Mims, who was the 8th receiver drafted in 2023, and they surely are disappointed in his rookie season as a receiver. With Mims ranked 19th in targets and 16th in receptions among the top 20 rookie receivers with at least 30 targets. He was 7th in catch percentage and 2nd in yards per catch. So those deep balls definitely came into focus. So him disappointing as a rookie on offense isn't strictly on him to blame, as the quarterback play from Russell Wilson held the passing offense back a lot as well. Mims mainly was effective when he got the ball in his hands or was targeted. A logjam at receiver didn't help him, and a few bad plays early ruined all trust in him. He went from 10 targets in the first 4 games to 4 over the next 5, where he picked up 4 yards with 2 catches. So some flashes from Mims last season. We really do need to see a lot more from him. And what I'm seeing a lot more right now is Troy Boer coming in here with the big time support. God bless you, Troy. $49.99 says, "Hey Nick, we'll listen later. Have a great show. Thank you for the thoughtful analysis you always provide. Sometimes not super full on the thoughts, but we appreciate that so much, Troy, and I appreciate you guys coming in." Zach comes in and says, Nick is DC and wants all the best players on the field on 3rd and long and nickel. Who do you put out there? Zach Allen, Nick Benito, Baron Browning. It's 3rd and long. Probably Browning, Cooper, just waiting to see what Ellis can do. Probably then Sanders. That's 4 guys up front. It's not Sanders, excuse me. Singleton, Barton for coverage, McMillan, Wallace, Jones, Locke, and of course, Surtain. I think I did it there. That's 4 guys. Hopefully, you can get up front with 4. Maybe you go something where you drop Singleton out there, you leave Barton, and you bring in Ellis as well. So you get Allen playing the one technique and a bunch of edge rushers as well. Or you can go a little bigger with Jones to take up some blockers. But that's my thought off the top without, putting the names on exact spots. So we want to see what that looks like. We got Roy saying Ronk. Oh, here we go. Michael Ronquillo says, "Good morning, Nick on Broncos for breakfast." Good to see you, Michael. Hope you're doing well. Appreciate you coming in. We also got Monica say, "Hey, Nick, morning. Mims has more chances now. I think he will be a good duo with Franklin." I think both can be good wide receivers. I don't think either will end up being, the type of receivers that an offense can completely go through. I believe both are probably more auxiliary pieces where you're happy to have them, but can the offense, are you pelting those guys with targets? Probably not. You need somebody who can be the pivot man in the passing game. So probably looking for that guy given the status of Cortland Sutton in his where he's at in his career. But right now it is Cortland Sutton on paper. I don't know if you can trust anybody else. He's the only one outside of the running game as a committee and the run game as a whole. That seems probably the focus point from a volume perspective on the offense. But finishing Eric's article, he says, Denver got flashes it needed from Mims to bet a significant improvement in 2024. But now it's time to go out there and execute with what Mims should be more more consistent play at quarterback in 2024 from Bo Nix. Mims has everything there to step up and be the receiver the Broncos wanted to be when they traded up for him. Denver has other receivers to turn to if he doesn't step up. Mims is projected to be the top slot receiver on the team, which means he'll have plenty of opportunities to show out with Nix as the trigger man. Mims needs to answer the bell, as the new kickoff return rules may not bode well for him to have the same impact as he had here in 2023. Probably a little bit more running back, thick body types. Going to play better there, but I'm fascinated to see how that looks. There are serious doubts about the Broncos receiver room, but Mims can answer many of them with his play. It's on him to do so. Big time. So last year, Mims, again, mentioned on here. My big issues with him is that in theory, he is a good route runner underneath, but he didn't actually end up being a great route runner last season. Now, some of that could be the offense as a whole with Russell Wilson struggling in the quick game and over the middle of the field. But overall, outside of the deep plays, really didn't have much from him here. So I'm going to see if I can pull up here reception per reception from Marvin Mims last season. And I don't see it. That's okay. But I know that he really was just so much better in the the deep routes last season than with the quick game and holding on to the football. So hopefully he can show that he can be a little bit more there. Obviously in the offense in Oklahoma, the Big 12, you had a lot more open spaces. The hash marks are wider. You can deal with a lot more space. You don't have to deal with as much physicality as a receiver. It's a track game versus a big athlete game at the college level outside of the SEC and Big Ten. They play a different style than most other places. So big questions with Mims there. He struggled last year overall, and hopefully he can be a lot better going forward because it was not good enough last season, without a doubt. We have Steven coming in here saying Drew Sanders tore his Achilles. We need an inside linebacker. Denver does need some help at linebacker, but are we sure Sanders is even going to be a linebacker to begin with? I mean, does the room actually change that much? I believe your ceiling has changed a lot because Sanders could have taken a spot and ran with it and become a good player, but he wasn't even projected to be the starter in that room. You have Barton and Griffith right now as the starters, and Stranad, Stranad might have been a better option based on what we saw from Sanders last season, struggling in the mental side of the game. So it definitely hurts the Broncos special teams, their versatility in their front seven and their upside. And they probably needed a linebacker regardless, but now they definitely need one more because you have one less dice roll at the position. Huge Elephant says, it was my understanding Mims was really raw when it came to routes and playbook knowledge. Yeah, I think he struggled there. Oklahoma, especially with Lincoln Riley, did a lot of very basic stuff out there with their offensive concepts. I don't know if any of you guys spent much time watching Caleb Williams this year with what Riley was doing at for USC, but I was not really a big fan, put it that way. I think Riley might be in some trouble out there. He's not really recruiting like he needs to be, especially up front, but we'll see what happens. Also seeing if I can find Marvin Mims being in there, and heck, let's just play what he has to say here on Marvin Mims, and this really kind of stands out. So I want to give a shout out to Matt Harmon here, who does some good work, and let's see if we can pull this up. Of course, the computer's getting nice and slow. There we go. All right, volume on. Let's make it full screen.
There is a reason Marvin Mims is not playing as much right now. He has gotten a bump of playing time lately, but he's not super involved in the offense because he's running a go route on 42% of his sampled routes, and he's not really getting open anywhere else. Like, this is not a guy that is a refined route runner that is ready right now as an NFL player. 42.3% success rate versus man, 69% success rate against zone. Marvin Mims, to me right now, is still sort of in that like gadget developmental phase of his career.
Where we are at right now with those man and zone scores, we are talking about a player that is in the company right now of players such as Jalen Reagor, Marquise Lee, and Terrace Marshall. This is not the company you want to keep if you're Marvin Mims, man.
So not great out of the gate, of course, for Marvin Mims. Now, some of that could be how defenses were playing the Broncos. Denver saw a lot of too high safety shells and vacated boxes because the Broncos running backs were struggling, and Russell Wilson struggled over the middle of the field. So why not just focus to take away the deep ball because you're not really getting hurt elsewhere? But Marvin Mims struggled last season, and they even talk about the route running stuff there. But for me, the play that stands out the most for Mims last year for me is the unexcusable fumble that he had against New England that led to I believe it was a scoop and score, and then end up being the defining moment of the game and definitely crushed Denver's playoff hopes there in that home game against the Patriots, who ended up picking number 3 overall. I mean, you can't lose to teams like that. So Mims needs to get better as a route runner. He needs to get a lot stronger with his ball security and just strength in general. It's not just the ball security. It's the ability to get off press or get off physical defensive backs who are covering him, as well as make tough catches over the middle of the field. If you're going to be playing slot and Denver's going to be utilizing the quick game over the middle of the field, guess what? You're going to have to make some tough catches. And not that Mims can't, but you would have to assume that the play style and strength to date would not lend itself to coming down with tough catches and being a physical player in that area. So we'll see what Denver does there. Obviously, they can change some things, but will be interesting to follow. John comes in and says, I think Mims will be a beast with better quarterback play from Bo Nix. I hope so. My worry is that one thing that Russell Wilson was still great at last season was the deep ball. I mean, he still hit some pretty high-level plays down the field. We saw that with Cortland Sutton. Even when the coverage didn't necessarily necessitate going deep, he was hitting some deep balls. And not that Nix has a horrible arm, but I think a lot of his deep balls at Oregon were more so schemed versus, him out there showing a howitzer of an arm against good defenses. So if Mims doesn't become better underneath, his best play, as we saw last year, was the deep route. And is that actually going to be lesser this season? Now, maybe it's something because of Bo Nix being better underneath. You see different types of coverages and schemes, and you can hit those schemed open timely wise. Maybe that opens up things for Mims. But it will be interesting to follow. It's fascinating. He's one of the players Denver, outside, of course, Bo Nix, but like Marvin Mims, probably playing the third or fourth most important position in football today, especially with how teams are taking away explosive plays. You need a second-round receiver that you traded up for to step up and be more than a gadget player, to be more than a special teams player, even though he was good there as a special teamer last season. Gatorade Gaming says, seen Broncos were interested in Miami and Pitt centers. Can't believe everything you see. I saw that, McGovern's potentially been listed out there. Mustafa and Forsyth are going to get their first chances, OTAs. After that, we'll see what happens, of course. Steven says, Boomer Sooner, Mims killed it at Oklahoma. He did. NFL's a different game, though, and Big 12 is going to be a different game than the SEC. We'll see how Oklahoma does out there. I do think that the way Venables recruits defense, you guys should at least have a good floor there. We'll see what the offense can do. Money Moore says, for a new dad, you're looking in pretty great shape. I've just been walking a lot with the dog and the baby out there. I still, mountain climbing dreams. So we'll see what happens there with the shape. I'm trying. I see a lot of parents, dads, get the kid and they're busy and, lack of sleep and it's hard to eat healthy and all of that. And I have sympathy for them. But I do not want to be a dad that, gets big in that way. I'd rather get big lifting weights, start slowly but surely. We're working our way there. Gary Palmer, 1999 says, good morning, Nick. What's your take on Vele? Is he sooner or later go Broncos? Well, he better damn well be sooner. He's 27 years old, one of the oldest. God, he might be one of the oldest wide receivers drafted in the last decade. Going to be 27 years old this season. I'll believe what he can do when I see it. Physical player, inside, outside, not really super twitched up, but ran a 4.40, 3 fours there, I believe, off the top of my head, and stood out in rookie OTAs. So there's opportunity there. I think he's probably more so competing with like that wide receiver 4, 5, 6. Like if he really steps out, maybe you just move on from Tim Patrick, maybe move on from little Jordan Humphrey. Definitely competing with Jalen Virgil and Brandon Johnson. And with that said, with those two names, it's more so about special teams. Can Vele step up and do some special teams work to make those guys older, less years of cost control, make those guys okay to move on from? We'll see what happens. Lawrence Rivera comes in and says, I love you too, Nick. Thanks, Lawrence. My new job is amazing, guys, but it takes up a lot of my time, so hard to spill the tea recently. Working hard, Lawrence. That's okay. We appreciate you coming in and hanging out regardless. And congrats on the new job, man. Putting that the bread on the table for sure. Ernie Mays, go Broncos country only. Hello, Mile High Huddle. Good to see you, Ernie. Kevin says, do you agree with everyone that Denver has a bottom? Everyone that we are bottom 5 in the NFL this year? I don't. I believe that talent-wise on paper, this could be a bottom 5 roster. With that said, last season we saw the team, in my opinion, coach their way to a few games that probably shouldn't have won. Like that was probably a team that should have won 6 games last season. They end up winning 8, and I believe a lot of that has to do with coaching. So maybe Denver ends up winning, 6, 7 games with a 4 or 5 win caliber roster. But we'll see. I mean, it's really hard, Kevin. The reality of the situation is you have a lot of early picks that on most teams would start to be making the backbone of your roster. Denver's missing many first and second round picks that they traded away for Russell Wilson and Sean Payton. And those would be guys that in theory should be big difference makers on your roster at this point, entering year 2, year 3 of their careers. And you have unbelievable dead cap as well. So it's pretty hard to field a competitive, competent roster when you have those many pitfalls in your roster building pathway. So we will see if they are a bottom 5 this season. I think there's plenty of reason to still be optimistic about the direction of the team based on what Bo Nix looks like. A lot of the young guys, this is a team that, I mean, it's like you're trying to win, I don't know, you're trying to win a poker game and you only have 3 cards where everyone else gets 5. Or you're playing Catan for maybe those millennials, Gen Zers listening, and everybody else gets to draw 2 cards every time, and you get to draw 1. You have settlements where everyone else has cities. Your hand is less this season, and we'll see what it looks like. If Bo Nix ends up playing like CJ Stroud, you're going to be able to overcome some stuff. If he ends up looking out there like Taylor Heineke, you might be picking number 1 overall. I mean, it's such a wide range this season. I don't believe in the talent on the defense. I think there's a lot of questions here, but this team is always needing to rebuild, and rookie quarterback, moving on from the guys they did, not being pretty conservative. Ooh, car honking out there. Hopefully you guys can't hear that. Being pretty conservative on the payment side in free agency. This is definitely a rebuild. People have been calling for a rebuild, and Sean Payton won't say that, but see what they do, not what they say. This looks like a rebuild. Keith Brugman says the 2022 or 2023 draft pick that needs an impact this year is got to be Marvin Mims. He plays wide receiver. I think you've already had a big step forward from Nick Bonito, who ends up, I don't know if he's like a starting caliber edge because of his run defense, but like he's a damn good pass rusher. You'd love to have him in there. So hopefully that's something we can see. Maybe Bonito takes another step forward, but the value positions, right? Quarterback, wide receiver, edge rusher, defensive tackle, cornerback, offensive tackle. I don't know if I already said quarterback, cornerback. Those, 6 spots. Those are the really valuable ones. And Mims is the one who lines up to be that guy. Maybe you could argue Riley Moss as well, but I feel better about some of the options at there's just so many young options at cornerback out there. You also have a superstar at cornerback, which makes things a little easier. You need a wide receiver to step up. You need Marvin Mims to step up. Keith Brugman, good to see you. Jay says, hit the gym. I'm trying, Jay. Just don't yell at me. Hopefully we're doing well. Kevin says, I say we finish between 15 and 20. Well, that's a borderline playoff team. I hope you're right, Kevin. We'll see what happens. We also got Dominique saying, Nick, have you seen there's a new documentary about Knicks on Bolt TV? I don't know what Bolt TV is. I got to say, I don't have the TV on very much these days. So other than hanging out with you guys on here, but send it my way. Hit me up on Twitter. If I carve out some time, I hope we can be better. Yeah, look, Jerron comes in and says Mims fumbled a few times as a punt returner, kick returner. He also fumbled a few times on gadget plays, sweeps. You got to protect the damn football. That's number 1. If you can't do that, then you're not seeing the field. Everything else is, JL says if we pick top 3, might as well draft another quarterback. If Nix was bad. Sorry, Jay, I'm trying to clean up the potty mouth here with the newborn in the house. It's possible if they are picking top 3, you're going to have to at least evaluate the options at the quarterback position because you don't have a chance to pick. It's the opportunity cost. That said, I mean, Carson Beck, Shadur Sanders, maybe Donovan Smith at Houston. Odds are, I think if you're picking top 3, you might not like any of the quarterbacks as much. And if there is one, he's probably going 1 overall. So there's a difference between picking 1 overall versus top 3. And I think probably Nix is good enough. I think the pitfall is going to be more so the playmakers and the defense in general versus Nix. Like Nix is going to be at least okay. You still probably would evaluate the quarterbacks at hand at that point, but it really lines up more so for me being a defensive line, defensive front class, maybe offensive tackle if you're picking in that 7 to 15 range. But if you're picking anywhere from like 3 to 8, it's going to be. I think it's probably. I would put pretty good money on pass rusher. Edge rusher or defensive tackle? I don't know. But there's some pretty good defensive line prospects at this point in the process. Ernie Mays says Broncos 10 or more wins this season. God bless you, Ernie. I wish I could see the Broncos through your eyes. And I would love to be wrong in that area. But I just don't think it's a very talented roster this season. And that's okay. I don't think that makes me a hater. I just, I don't have high expectations, and it's a kind of anything that we get from them is gravy. So we'll see what happens. This is a reset season. You got a lot of ability to really move hard after this season. You get a lot of cap space back. The way you can structure contracts as well, you can move on, or at least give contracts where they have a low 2025 dead cap hit and get big after that, where you have pretty much nobody on the books for 2026 and beyond. So you have a lot of cap space. You can be aggressive this offseason, and you have all your draft picks, at least the top ones. So we'll see if things change there. And yeah, huge Jelly fan. I always get that wrong. Huge Jets fan. That's what it looks like to me. Huge Jelly fan says, yeah, defensive end likely. Edge rusher, outside linebacker, defensive tackle, something like that. There's going to be guys available there, without a doubt. And Hot Sauce comes in over on Twitter, says better tight end play would be great. Better tight end play would be great. Troutman is very solid, but yet forgettable. He broke a tackle last season. I was complaining all season, like, hey, man, it'd be really great if you broke a tackle. It'd be cool. And he did break a couple at the end. You're happy to have somebody like that, but he's definitely not a difference maker. And before we wrapping it up here, talking about wide receiver 2 and Marvin Mims, Quentin says, I personally want to see Tim Patrick succeed as a number 2 or 3 wide receiver. Would love that. I would love all these Bronco players that have just been consistently injured over the last 2 seasons to step up and be good players. I'd love to see them get bigger second contracts. Love to see guys Denver brought in that seem like good guys end up being contributors. We're talking about Caden Stearns, like Jaron Washington mentions here. We're talking about Greg Dulcich. We're talking about Tim Patrick. A lot of these guys that have been pretty consistently, perennially injured the last 2 seasons, right now healthy. So fingers crossed, we see them play a little bit better and get on the field. But to those guys, to me, I'll believe it when I see it. I'm hoping for them. I'm not cheering against them by any means, of course. But when you're that injured in the NFL, it's hard to get back out there. And then you're talking about just getting back in football shape. Do those little dings and niggles lead to more injuries later on? It's just hard, man. It's so hard. Oh, Jonas Griffith, another one in line for a big role. Who is Jonas Griffith right now? Who is Tim Patrick? Who is Greg Dulcich? Who is Caden Stearns? They've missed so much time being injured. I mean, you see their name on the depth chart, but is that player even the one that we saw prior? Impossible to say until we see them out there. Can you depend on them? Probably not. So it's tough. There's going to be opportunities though, and I think that's all you can ask for, given what those 4 players have gone through the last few seasons. And it'd be great if 2 of them stayed healthy and stepped up. That would be awesome. 4 out of 4, probably not happening, folks. Probably not happening. We got Naj coming in here before we wrapping on up. Says, hey, brother, who is your surprise player that have the biggest unexpected impact? My pick is Jonas Griffith if healthy. That's a great one. Surprise player who could have a big impact if healthy. I'm going to go Audric Estime. I think there's opportunity there for running back. Javonte Williams has been struggling last year of his contract. Coming off the injury, it's not totally his fault, but Estime is young. He runs tough, and I think this is going to be a team that wants to run the football. I don't expect 50 to 60 dropbacks a game. I'm expecting 30-ish. So there's going to be a lot of run opportunities here. Estime is young. He runs hard. He protects the football. And the offense has got to go through somebody. Right now, not necessarily that Estime is a guy you funnel an offense completely through, but I think the run game is going to be a big aspect of this team. So I'll go with Estime. I think it'll end up being a running back there that is surprising. Other than that, who could be surprising? I mean, young players who could step up and make a big role. Maybe Brandon Jones ends up being a star. Denver paid him decently this offseason, especially what the safety market is. Riley Moss is a wild horse. And of course, Marvin Mims. I mean, God, you gotta see something from him this season. Traded up for him. He's got to be a guy. Michael Ronquillo says, great show to Nick on Broncos for breakfast. Thank you so much, Michael, as we start to wrap it up in here. Christian Parker says, we need more from all our young players. Our recent draft classes since 2022 have been abysmal. Part of that is because you're dealing with less draft picks. Of course, those more likely to hit impact players, ones at the top without first and second round picks, makes it harder. But I mean, you go through those 2 classes, and it's not that you don't only have a lack of picks at the top, because you can have a lack of picks at the top and still have good draft classes. Look at the Rams this last year. I mean, what a draft class. No first-round pick. They take Steve Avila and then a bunch of day 3 guys, and they look great. Now, granted, they had like 52 picks. But Denver 2022 and 2023, outside of Benito, who is more a super sub kind of player, and Marvin Mims as a returner, are we getting anything from those two classes? I mean, really, are we getting anything from those two draft classes for the Broncos? It's not good. I mean, let's just pull them up here real quick as we finish up this finish it up here. But Mims, Sanders, Moss, Skinner, Forsythe, a lot of potential there. Still, I mean, not a lot because it's a small class without top picks, but a lot of those guys we're waiting to see on. Sanders, obviously, Achilles, it's too bad, but Moss could take a big step this season. Skinner could end up being a player. Forsythe could be the starting center. Mims could be wide receiver too. Way too early to write the book completely on those guys, but we are 1 quarter through their rookie contract and not much to show so far. 2022, a lot of draft picks, not a lot of play. Nick Bonito, he's been good. I was skeptical to pick at the time because I really thought he would struggle as an edge setter, but he's so explosive and twitched up that he can get after passer at pick. What was he, 63, 64? That's fine. Dulcich, not been out there. Mathis, entering year 3 or 4, has not been good when out there. Hopefully, I mean, he's still got to have a chance. He's an athlete. Wazarike entering year 3 since drafted, but year 2 of his contract. We'll see what happens there. Turner Yell, I don't think we'll see him this year with his injury. Montreal Washington, Luke Wattenberg. I mean, as a 5th-round pick, if he just ends up being a swing guy, that's fine return on investment, honestly, but we'll see. But I mean, really, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 guys listed there. You're getting about 1.5 contributors. Not enough right now. So big year for them. As Christian Parker says, we need more from all of our young players in those 2 draft classes. Hopefully so. Appreciate everyone coming in here. We got to wrap it on up. I need to get some coffee in the gullet. My throat is starting to get a little scratchy, but we appreciate everyone coming in. Make sure you're following myself at Nick Kendall MHH. Also follow us at Mile High Huddle if you haven't done so yet. Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. As that ticker says there underneath, please subscribe to us over on YouTube. Like this show if you haven't done so yet. It would help me a heck of a lot since I'm running solo today and I need to feel a little good about myself running on little sleep. So we'd appreciate that. And share on your social media platforms. Shout out to our star providers, Lawrence Rivera, Troy Brewer with the big one, Gary Palmer, 1999, Lawrence Rivera again, Naj, 1999, Michael Ronquillo. You guys are great. We really appreciate you so much. David Youngkin coming in here. Hope you guys are doing well as well. Like I said, click a thumbs up on the way out. Hit me up on Twitter. We will not be live on Memorial Day. You guys enjoy yourself. Have fun. Stay safe. Don't drink and drive, please. And appreciate every one of you guys coming in here. It's a lot of fun to do this. I know it's the dead season right now. May and June are always a little bit, as a content provider, it's like, man, what do we want to talk about today? So if you guys have anything you want us to talk about, hit me up. Appreciate you guys. If you want me to shut up, hit me up too. No, whatever. But appreciate everyone. I always like to close out the shows reminding you to make that conscious choice to choose kindness and compassion. It's easy to get out there, and, especially in social media where we're all so siloed, get super negative and spiteful and mean, but we're all people. We're all dealing with our own things. And, just make sure you continue to go out there and try to choose kindness and compassion. And if you do that, you might make a small difference out there, but those things, enough people do that, it does add up. So appreciate everyone. Have a great rest of your day. We'll see you again next Wednesday. Go Broncos.